Welcome to today's Explainer. Look, if you're tuning into this, you already know that artificial intelligence is an incredibly powerful tool. But today, we're talking about a massive shift, the crucial difference between just casually using an AI and actually extracting high-level, specialized performance from it. We're going to look at exactly how to transform an AI like Claude from a generic, everyday assistant into a highly specific, breathing professional character. Honestly, it's the difference between asking someone to pretend and giving them a fully realized identity. Okay, let's dive right in. We've got a highly structured masterclass for you today, and here is our roadmap. First up, the fundamental difference between a label and a true persona. Second, the anatomy of a character. Third, 4 powerful use cases. And finally, common mistakes and limits. All right, part 1, label versus true persona. So here's the absolute core problem with how most people prompt. You type, act like an expert, right? But that's just a label. It's basically slapping an empty name tag on the AI and hoping it magically knows the job. A true persona, on the other hand, is a comprehensive framework. It's an integrated character equipped with a highly specific way of thinking, a distinct voice, built-in constraints, and clear, actionable goals. Those frustrating generic results you get from standard prompts, yeah, they usually happen because you're relying on weak labels. So why does taking the time to design a persona work so incredibly well? Well, it all comes down to something called information-based activation. You see, Claude was trained on this vast, incredibly dense dataset that includes deep, nuanced knowledge about professional roles, corporate structures, and industry-specific perspectives. When you define a highly specific persona, you're essentially crafting a unique key to unlock that exact segment of its knowledge base. Suddenly, the AI surfaces the specific vocabulary, the priorities, and the unique viewpoints native to that exact role. It's a real game changer. Moving on to Section 2, the anatomy of a character. If a persona is a framework, how exactly do we build it? Well, think of this as assembling the vital organs of your AI character. There are 5 concrete building blocks you need: identity, way of thinking, voice, constraints, and finally, goals. Skip even one of these, and your simulation will probably just fall flat. Let's look at them a bit more closely. Let's start with that very first step, identity. Saying something like, you are a sales expert is super weak. But what if you say, you have 15 years of experience in enterprise sales, you strictly use the MEDDPICC methodology, and you specialize in SaaS pipeline management? Do you see the difference there? By specifying the years of experience, the exact framework, and the industry context, you immediately lock the AI into a highly specialized frame of reference. Okay, so you've got the identity down. Next, you absolutely must define their way of thinking. Honestly, this might be the most critical piece of the puzzle. You aren't just telling the AI who it is, you are instructing it on how to process information. Are they a total data nerd, or do they trust their gut intuition? Are they hyper-focused on short-term quarterly gains, or do they have a long-term strategic vision? Do they aggressively chase opportunity, or are they deeply focused on mitigating risk? Setting these specific parameters totally shapes the logic of the response you're going to get. Now, here is where it gets really fascinating: constraints and blind spots. Real people are limited in their perspectives, right? And your AI should be too. Think about a chief financial officer. They are hyper-focused on cost and risk, but that creates a very natural blind spot for things like brand growth. On the flip side, a chief marketing officer is laser-focused on growth, but they may be completely blind to creeping costs. Giving an AI these intentional blind spots doesn't make it weaker. It actually makes the simulation incredibly believable. Rounding out our character anatomy, we lock in voice and goals. Voice is all about the delivery. Are they blunt and direct, using heavy technical jargon? Or maybe they're super diplomatic, using simple, clear language. Those subtle details heavily impact the credibility of what you get back. And finally, goals. What does this character literally want to achieve in this interaction? The AI is going to prioritize its answers based entirely on whatever finish line you set for it. All right, Section 3, 4 powerful use cases. So, we've built our character in theory, but how do we actually deploy this out in the wild to get a real edge? We're looking at 4 major applications: multi-perspective analysis, customer simulation, expert consultation, and difficult conversation prep. Listen, these aren't just neat little party tricks. These are rigorous methodologies to completely stress test your ideas before they hit the real world. Let's talk about multi-perspective analysis. It's basically like stepping into a virtual war room. Imagine you're planning a massive product launch. You can actually instruct the AI to simultaneously act as the CFO looking at costs, the CMO looking at the market, and the product manager evaluating the technical side. Having those completely distinct personas tear into your single plan, it instantly exposes hidden blind spots and weaknesses in your strategy before you ever spend a single dollar.
And this setup translates perfectly into real-world interpersonal skills, too. With customer simulation, you can invent a notoriously difficult client, maybe someone with strict budget constraints who is actively considering a competitor, and let your sales team practice handling those objections completely safely. Or use it for conversation prep. Need to deliver terrible news to an intimidating boss or negotiate pricing with a really tough vendor? Build their exact persona and practice your delivery against realistic pushback.
Which brings us to Section 4, Common Mistakes and Limits. Look, like any advanced technique, there are some pretty major pitfalls you absolutely must avoid. First, superficial definitions, getting lazy and reverting back to just saying, act like an expert. Second, breaking character. If you set up an amazing persona and then randomly ask, but what's your real opinion? You completely shatter the illusion. Third, confusing simulation with reality. Always remember, the answers are still being generated by an AI model. And fourth, giving contradictory treats. If you command the AI to be a hyper-obsessive micromanager who is simultaneously a detached big-picture strategist, you're literally giving it a digital existential crisis. It completely ruins the output.
We also absolutely have to talk about the hard limits of this tech. No matter how incredibly detailed and realistic your persona design gets, AI cannot and honestly should not replace real legal or medical professionals. For critical life, health, or legal decisions, you must always consult a human expert. Plus, safety guidelines still apply here. Mimicking specific real-world individuals is often restricted by the AI's core safety values, and trying to generate harmful characters is just going to get blocked.
Okay. Before we wrap things up, I've got a killer technical tip for you. If you find yourself using a specific persona all the time, say a master editor or a really tough business coach, you don't have to rewrite the whole framework every single time. You can just integrate the identity, thinking, voice, and constraints directly into a system prompt. Bam! Now your meticulously crafted character is a permanent, always active fixture across all your sessions with that AI.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. We've seen the vast difference between an empty label and a fully realized persona. We've built the anatomy, explored the use cases, and tackled the limits. Being able to spin up these specialized, highly constrained virtual experts, it completely changes how you can prepare, strategize, and learn. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought. Who are you going to design to challenge your next big idea?